Good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of Wrestle Talk Show. I'm your host, Joshua Zimmerman, here to bring you the latest and greatest professional wrestling news on WWE, ROH, Dragon Gate USA, TNA, anything and everything wrestling. We cover it. We want to start this show as we do every show, thanking you. We've reached, and what we'll discuss in today's episode, along with a lot of other things, that we are happy to announce we've reached 6,000 views. That's right, all of our videos combined, the 90 plus videos. I know if you break it down, it seems small. It is small. But all videos combined have gained us 6,000 video views. So we want to thank you for that. And we want to thank our audience, our core audience, which is obviously the United States, and trailing not too far behind, our friends in Canada. But like we always do, thank you for your viewership, and get ready for another fun-filled episode. As we do, we're going to start this episode with your wrestling ratings for last week into this week. Monday Night Raw, following WrestleMania, scored a 3.8 viewership rating. The pay-per-view itself, WrestleMania, scored a 28.9 viewership rating, as WWE projects at least expecting 1 million buys or better. SmackDown scored a 1.94, which isn't too bad, but considering their goal was 2.0 or better with the Sci-Fi Network, I know it's splitting hairs because they do eventually go to a 2.0 and they maintained it, but it's kind of like the WGN thing, why they drop Superstars. When WWE gets into these agreements with the network, the network paid, and why WGN America canceled Superstars is the networks pay, and from what I understand, Superstars was expensive, and SmackDown, considering it's the number 2 show, second to Raw, but the networks pay every week for that product, and WWE sets a rating or better, and when you don't reach it, you kind of wonder why. And we've always said that SmackDown is treated like the number 2 show, oftentimes to where it doesn't matter, and I think that hurts it. It could be a lot more, but like I said, it will rally back to a 2.0. We'll see this week, it being the first SmackDown after WrestleMania. I'm optimistic to think that, and like we've been telling with basic storytelling, WrestleMania is where new feuds and storylines begin, and we'll get into that part of it a little later, but I want to stay optimistic and think that Raw and SmackDown from here out will bring new content and new feuds and storylines. And it also segues into a news bit that we'll have in just a moment. But again, WrestleMania, the pay-per-view, scores a 28.9. They project 1 million buys or better. And the cost of the pay-per-view, which is the question of the night, was $60 for 4 hours of programming. Did you watch it? Did you enjoy it? Post your feedback anywhere, especially WrestleTalkShow.webs.com on our online forum, or directly under this video via YouTube.com/CWE Company. Moving on, WWE Tough Enough, and again, this all segues all the ratings actually, well, the Tough Enough rating, the Tough Enough rating and the SmackDown rating will segue into a news bit that we have for you. But Tough Enough scored a 2.6, and the Hall of Fame ceremony for this year scored a 2.4 viewership rating. WWE Superstars scored a 0.7 viewership rating, and this week is the last episode for the show on WGN America Cable Network. TNA Impact scored its normal 1.2 viewership rating, and again, that's a discussion we'll have a little later. Into your wrestling news, it's confirmed that Sting was asked if he wished to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. Had it all set up, plans were underway, everything was a go, and then Sting said no. So, can't really blame him because it would be contradictive. He deserves to go into it for his wrestling ability, and since and we'll get into it more, but since he more or less came out right after the buyout and said he would never work for WWE because he's seen what WWE did to WCW guys once WWE owned WCW. So we'll see what happens, or we'll talk about that more in a moment. USA Network, the network that carries the weekly Monday Night Raw, proclaims 12 million unique viewers for the network on Monday nights. This is what can only be assumed as people wanted to see the follow-up to WrestleMania, and that Raw has, and until otherwise noted, will always be the flagship show for the company. And like we said, coming off the heels of WrestleMania, once we get into the WrestleMania thing, I think you'll understand why this is good for USA and what it says about Mania, and it all comes full circle at a point. Ring of Honor announced yesterday that it has signed 4 new contracts for a tag wrestler, a singles wrestler, an announcer, and a referee. So, Ring of Honor fans, and also the HDNet agreement comes to an end, I believe, this week. I could be wrong about that, but I know that HDNet will soon, if not, is already out of the picture, and ROH is optimistic about that there is at least one more network that they're looking at to carry the program. Lucha Libre USA, remember that show that we thought was going to be good and turned out to be a lot of backstage old school stuff with actual Mexican wrestlers and storylines that didn't make sense, but it was something different, so we were optimistic? Yes, that's still around. But it announces that its TV taping that was scheduled for April 16th, next weekend, entitled Border Brawl, has been canceled, or, as quoted by the promotion itself, rescheduled. In a statement released a few days ago, ticket holders for the Albuquerque, New Mexico show were informed of the cancellation and that they will receive a refund for the event. The company issued the following statement on their Facebook page. Quote, nothing has been canceled, but some shows are being rescheduled. We will be posting the new dates shortly, along with other very exciting news. Kurt Angle, DUI follow-up. There was, as I joked about the other day, absolutely no snow on that North Dakota highway when police officers found Kurt Angle parked on the median of a North Dakota highway, and in fact he was under the influence. They smelled it on his breath. He failed the field sobriety test, admitted to texting, and this was just to confirm what I thought, but I don't know if I said or didn't want to say. There was no snow, and in fact, as a North Dakota wrestling fan pointed out on another show, smartwrestlingfan.com, by the way, check out their show Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. North Dakota was recently experiencing warm weather, and all their snow was melting. WWE announces a new business model, including a new talent department headed by Triple H, detailed as a talent recruitment program. They also announced new television content, Tough Enough being the launch of that new content, and a new marketing strategy. Listed as, quote, a brand extension that has two key components. One, actively seeking entertainment companies to acquire, and secondly, outsourcing WWE's production and licensing to generate additional revenue. And it starts. Triple H running one of the areas of business of wrestling. Well, I guess it could be worse. We could not see it coming. We all know that it's laid out that he's gonna take over the company along with Stephanie. I, for one, don't really have high hopes for it, unless some things change. I mean, but that can be said about any of the two, TNA, and we say it every week, but we'll get back to it. It just, well, it's listed as a talent recruitment, so maybe it's not. Maybe, as I said, it being after WrestleMania, I'm staying optimistic. It's talent recruitment, so I guess as good. Triple H is good. I mean, we make fun of him wanting to have the action figure look, but he does know how to wrestle. So if he's the one recruiting, it's like I say about the writers. Why not have one of the best recruiting the next superstars? Included, like we said before, or to follow up with this business model, included in the additional content are plans for an animated series. This will be fun. Little cartoon wrestlers instead of on top of the actual wrestling we watch. So I guess, they have a WWE Kids magazine, and it's funny every time I see it at the newsstand, because it implies that you're trying to get them into wrestling before they can really read, because from my understanding, the Kids magazine is all your favorite little kid heroes and more pictures. So it's an ongoing joke of mine, but you're more or less, as soon as they get popped out of their mom, pick them up a copy of WWE Kids magazine, and by the time they're 13, they'll be ready for Raw and SmackDown. Just a thought. And they also, in this statement, in the press release and statement, mentioned that this animated series will lead up to the launch of the WWE TV network, which is now, as we've been talking about, keeps getting delayed. But now they're estimating a launch time within 12 to 18 months. Just to reiterate, WWE's TV network is going to be all WWE all the time, which I know it's like playing both sides of the fence, but wrestling is wrestling, and, we get, 2 hours on Raw, SmackDown, there's 4 superstars, there's 5, between 5 and 8 hours a week if you watch just the one brand, 10 to 12 factoring in TNA. I made this point a few videos ago. Is a network, a dedicated network, necessarily a good thing, considering you have WWE on demand? So it's more or less like saying it's more or less already accomplished what you're going to try to accomplish with the network. Wrestling fans have the option of, on days that there isn't scheduled wrestling, you can go on to WWE On Demand, Classics On Demand, and watch the material they have for that month. So there already is a substitution for that fan that can't get enough. And I argued the point that it could be too much wrestling. Just like we report, and it's like reporting and criticizing on it. My prediction is it could get to a point, I hope it does great, but it could get to a point where the reporting and reviewing never has a real end or a real point, because it's always ongoing. It never stops. There's never a break. Moving on, World Wrestling Entertainment is so focused on being an entertainment company that Vince McMahon wishes and has, as of today, folks, this just confirmed, so focused on being an entertainment company that he's had the second W in World Wrestling Entertainment removed, so to speak. WWE will now be known as just WWE. He has taken the word wrestling out of the logo. So WWE will be just that, just a logo. It will not mean wrestling anymore. Vince McMahon himself has removed it, and thus, basically what I wrote here, thus, like we just said, the letters would mean nothing. It would just be a generic company logo. And it brings back to an ongoing point that every reviewer has made. The folks at the Pro Wrestling Torch, pwtorch.com, Smart Wrestling Fan, ProWrestling.net, they're ashamed of where they came from. There was a time that Vince McMahon was focused on the wrestling. And then you come to today, where people like Freddie Prinze Jr., that's right, Buffy the Vampire Slayer's husband, writes the story, helps the writers to write the storylines of today's wrestling. And there's another man who's in entertainment writing who writes the promos for every wrestler, which puts the blame of the homophobic and racist and just uncalled for promotions and back and forth on the shoulders of the writer, the wrestler, and Vince McMahon, since he makes it a point to make it known that he has the final say on everything. The point is, they're a wrestling company. The wrestling they used to be proud of now, and we'll discuss it because it's part of Vince's statement, they want to be involved in everything. In Vince McMahon's statement, we are still focused on our core business of producing wrestling content. This new business model will help us reach the goal of being a global entertainment company. So wrestling fans were disappointed again. We went from World Wrestling Federation to World Wrestling Entertainment to Bob Barker and Drew Carey and Little Bow Wow and the PlayStation Portable Kid and all these non-related people, just so wrestling can be associated with every other form of televised entertainment. And I'm sorry, but that's not the point of wrestling. It's like Tough Enough. I said in an earlier video that as long as you stick with the platform of Tough Enough, where it takes an everyday person who wishes to be a wrestler and actually turns them into a wrestler, then that's fine. But with this new news of wanting to be a global entertainment company, I can't help but think that it's going to be reality TV meets wrestling TV. There was a good and valid reason it was separated. It's its own entity. Wrestling should not be tied in with the Desperate Housewives, with General Hospital, Jersey Shore. It should not. It should be its own thing. Like I said on the other night's episode, you have your wrestling fans, you have your 2.5 Men fans, you have your Jersey Shore fans, you have your Real World fans. There is a fan base and market for everything. But this just, not to say that it isn't a smart business move, but you will have wrestling fans. You report in quarterly incomes of $200 million or better after expenses. You don't need to separate yourself or tie yourself into anything else. And lastly in the news, Kurt Angle posted shortly after WrestleMania or during the match, showing how much of a life he doesn't have in TNA, that he's upset that Randy Orton gets away with using the Angle Slam, one of his moves, all the time. Well, I'm sorry, but Kurt, I can't side with you on this one, because it's, without an exaggeration, it's almost like an FU. It's a move. It's not your entire move set. They don't say Angle Slam. They don't really talk about you at all, Kurt. And I just love how this brings me to another point that I've never discussed. And it's on YouTube if you don't believe me. Just, I guess, key in Kurt Angle and TNA as the tag, and you're bound to find it. It's a shoot video. I watched a bunch of them a couple months back. But now, Dixie, I hope you're not shocked by this, because I know you, let anybody do whatever they want. But Kurt posted a video when he first arrived at TNA that he enjoyed TNA because of the lighter schedule, and that when the time comes, it's probable he'd want to end his career in WWE. Now, with that being said, let me point out why that will never happen. Kurt Angle, while under contract with World Wrestling Entertainment some years ago, this is how much I don't follow or care for Angle anymore, calls Vince McMahon up on the phone after having to be at either a house show or a programmed event, and tells McMahon or a representative for the company that there's a family emergency, literally, and he can't make it. The next day, he signs his contract with TNA. There was no family emergency. He didn't face Vince. He ran to Orlando, Florida, signed with Dixie Carter, divorced his wife, and made a new life, and just recently had a baby, and which we discussed. Now the popular TNA storyline is, hey Kurt, you're a good wrestler, but instead of wrestling different people and proving your skills, let's make a storyline where you relive your divorce. You get to see your ex-wife every day. You get to see her new husband, fellow wrestler Jeff Jarrett, every day. Let's let you wrestle him every day. And then we're going to bring your kids with her and her new kids with her new husband and put them in the storyline. And then if you could just relive your whole divorce for us, even threatening them like they'll wish they were dead in one pay-per-view as they were renewing their vows. Yeah, and then we wonder why, with our problems as cowardly and evil as it was, Chris Benoit killed himself. I'm not saying it relates, but it's a road that could easily blend in when, let's let you deal with this personally at home and go through hell, and then we're going to pay you to come into work and relive your nightmare all over again, because just maybe one extra person will watch our show. Just a thought, but if I were divorced, I wouldn't want to go to my place of work and see my ex-wife and her new husband every day. And like I said in the last video, I'm sure there are people that will comment and say, oh, they're best friends. Yeah, I bet they are, till he murders them all. It's coming. You heard it here first. You can only push a man so far before he snaps. And we could sound like a broken record back and forth, but sometimes real life in the storytelling works. I'll be the first to admit, like I said last video, it doesn't have a great success rate, but sometimes it works given the circumstance you're imitating or replicating. But this isn't one of them. That's like saying, let's have a gimmick where at the end of the match, the wrestler hangs himself. Do you really think that would work? I don't. Now, moving on. To our demographics and fan feedback. This was as of yesterday and today, and as we already advertised, we've reached 6,000 viewers, so the number from yesterday, 5,971, is irrelevant. And this new number is as of the 7th of April 2011, and the demographics are updated daily. 13.8% of the total audience enjoys the recent Raw loses ground headed to Mania, TNA does us a favor episode. So that was interesting to see. Broken down by geographical location, excuse me, the United States makes up 65.7% of our total audience, while Canada trails second place with 17.1%, Germany 2.9, Ireland 2.9, Argentina 2.9, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, and Italy 2.9. Again, all these statistics are updated every 24 hours, so it's not really, it's consistent to a point where it's too consistent if you ask me. 93% of the audience is of the male demographic, while 7% is female, so thank you to our 7% female viewership. Love to see that number come up, because when we're all into wrestling, it's just a good time all around. But as of today, the male demo is of 96%, and the female demographic dropped to 6% of the total audience in all targeted and viewable locations. The show peaked in late March with new viewers, so thank you very much, guys. As we always say, visit WrestleTalkShow.webs.com to donate to the show, to help us better this production, to help us keep it going. We have 38 subscribers to our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/CWE Company. And we want to thank you for that, and do whatever you can. Interact. Send us emails to cwecompany@gmail.com. Remember to subscribe. If you can't donate, that's fine. Donate your listening time and refer a friend. We have 38 subscribers, but let's keep that number going. We're happy with it, but we want to see it more. Feedback from the fans, as we always do. 2K Swagger writes in that he thinks that WrestleMania 28, which would be the streak versus whatever match, he wants it to be Triple H versus Taker in a Hell in a Cell. And in theory, the rumor is 20 is the number that Undertaker will call it a career. But like I've said for many videos, we've been guessing that every year. He quote calls that match intense, and that's going to bring me to this, where we'll just loop everything into one. WrestleMania was from the song 2 videos ago. I agree with it. Minimal build. Undertaker's streak was on the line, but Triple H lost nothing. It was just, we got it. It was to avenge that HBK couldn't do it. And then you have HBK come out. The whole storyline, like I said last video, had Shawn Michaels knocking on the door, literally. Not literally, but he could have factored in at any time to help the build. And now he came back and told Triple H, you can't win. So it worked, but to do all that in the last week and then up to the Raw after WrestleMania, I don't know. I can't speak for anybody. The Taker versus Triple H match picked the crowd up, and it was a good match. And Triple H said Monday night he was scared, but it was a good match, and he insinuated that he wants to do it again next time, which would be next year. And there were certain points where you thought, it got your attention. It was just, my whole argument with it was, for as important as they made it seem, and how Triple H buried people and how things were done, it should have been given more build time. A week and a half is not a build for a match that you're putting right before the main event of your core pay-per-view. The pay-per-view that defines your company, you could have done a little better. And Youth Movement, Miz, Jack Swagger, Kofi, Cody Rhodes, I guess it all factored in. I guess I can say I retract my guesstimation, but, Kofi, it was good to see him considering why he hasn't been on TV. Cody Rhodes' storyline is perfect, so I guess they did live up to their bargain, and the Youth Movement is moving along, but I guess for once on this end we might get what I always say we want, a build to things, a reason to keep watching. Moving on to the plugs and then the segment of the show is we all doing that. Like we said, remember to visit WrestleTalkShow.webs.com. Click on our forum. Post a response to questions already there. Make your own questions. Send show-related emails, comments, concerns to cwecompany.com. While you're on the show's site, click the donate button. Donate as little or as much as you want. Visit youtube.com/cwecompany to watch this video and all the other 90 plus episodes of this show. And remember to, at the bottom of the video, right below the play button, remember to like us, friend us on both Facebook and Twitter at CWE Company. And remember to visit our friends at smartwrestlingfan.com every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, for their show. And Monday through Friday, PW Torch, the Pro Wrestling Torch, pwtorch.com. Monday through Friday, and their podcast, Monday nights, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern, leading up to Raw. And Tuesday through Friday, 5:30 to 6:30, as well as ProWrestling.net for the latest wrestling news. And our segment. And as we said in the ratings that we would get back to, which we have, and that is, did you order WrestleMania for $60? What did you think of the entertainment value of the product overall? Now factor in what we've just discussed. The fact that we've taken wrestling, literally the word wrestling, out of WWE. They market it and they don't mention the word wrestling. This is before the formal removal. And I don't know. The Cole versus Jerry Lawler match should have been more, but it dragged on and killed the crowd. Triple H had no build. The Rock was The Rock, but I guess you could say, it was WrestleMania. Not fantastic, but not horrible. And with these economic times, it goes back to what I've been saying before. When you have, or many a times, go back to core pay-per-views. WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, take King of the Ring off free TV. Like that I still will, to this day, disagree with this year's King of the Ring. It should not have been televised. If you were going to, especially when it showcased the youth movement by making Sheamus the winner, you could have built up to a very successful pay-per-view in revenue and buy rate standpoint. Money in the Bank, like we've said, you did it with that. It used to be a WrestleMania bit, But now it literally has the strength to be its own pay-per-view. And every point we ever point out in every episode always comes full circle when all you have to do is go back to storytelling, make these things believable and matter, and more importantly, make the fact that someone has a title shot mean something. Make meaning holding the title mean something. Oh, I just won the WWE title. Guess I'm making a little more money this week. That's the gist. When you barely get John Cena a week before WrestleMania to mention that he wants the title, like I said in the video before Mania, John Cena should have been spending the whole month saying that he lost the title, but on the grandest stage, this is just an example, but on the grandest stage of them all, vow to get it back. Make it, Stone Cold put it best. If you're not in the WWE to be World Heavyweight Champion, then what are you doing here? And anymore, that policy's not followed. It's, let's be wrestlers just because we can be wrestlers. If we happen to win the title, we happen to win the title. Now, this excludes wrestlers that are comfortable in their positions. Like, Big Show, Kane, Big Show, other wrestlers. They've been with the company. They may not have had the glamorous title opportunities and or runs or big storylines or whatever, but they're enough of a staple in the company to where they understand that what their role is. They don't shoot for the stars, and at least they have a job. But to end this show, folks, thank you again for your viewership. Remember, leave your feedback on what you thought of WrestleMania and whether or not you got it directly under this video in the comments area, or send it to cwecompany@gmail.com and I will address it. We are, just a show note real quick, we are planning, and it will be, I think, I'll concur with the wrestling geniuses, but I think I may want to do a Chris Benoit topic-driven show next week. That'll be a 2 to 3 hour special episode. It's already more or less been decided what we were going to do. We're working on the format and getting, like I said, I know a little bit about it, but the geniuses needed to refresh, so I've been giving them time to do so. So by next week, we'll have shows in between, but by next week, we'll have another special edition episode, and it's likely to be Chris Benoit, and basically break it down from a wrestling standpoint. And no, again, as a disclaimer, we're not condoning his actions. We're just making wrestling points on this episode. So in advance, it will not be an episode that defends the heinous crime. It will be strictly about wrestling, as it always is. But for all of us at Wrestle Talk Show, this is Joshua Zimmerman saying thank you for watching. Without you, our show would not be possible. Have an excellent night, and stay tuned.